Welcome to the Real Estate Real Success podcast, where we talk about key business successes and lessons learned along the way in the hopes of inspiring brokerage owners and managers to find new ways to grow their business. I'm Chiyoko Kikino, and this episode, we are going to talk about what it takes to attract agents to brokerages, what's important in the recruiting process, and how you can build on some of the old school recruiting tactics, making them contemporary and relevant for today's market. I am super lucky to be joined by Katelyn Fulton. She is one of the managing brokers from Century 21 Percy Fulton, headquartered out of Toronto, Ontario. Katelyn, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So Katelyn, just to give our listeners a little bit about your brokerage's history, your family has been part of the Century 21 brand for a very, very long time. Actually, I think you're one of the first Century 21 franchises here in Canada. And it was back in 1977, I think, when your grandfather originally joined Century 21, converting his brokerage to the Century 21 brand. And then in 1988, your father took over the business. And then 5 years ago, you and your sisters joined the family business. So if you don't mind, I wanted to start off and quickly talk about the pros and cons of working in a family business. And then I want to move on to talk about the successes you're seeing from a recruiting standpoint. Does that sound good?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right. Excellent. So we all want to know what it's like to work with your fathers and your sisters in the business. I watch the Fulton sisters and you and your sisters on social media, and you make it look so much fun working together. What's it really like?
To be honest, it is a lot of fun. And I think what a lot of people see there on Instagram and Facebook and all of that, it is a lot of fun. We get along really well. I think what we have is extremely rare. It's hard to have siblings that get along, let alone three that get along. And then you've got my father, who is a very well-respected person in the industry, and he's been in the business for a long time. So he's been through a lot. He's been through 2 recessions. He's been running a really successful business. So I'm really lucky to have his mentorship and really have his guidance through all of this. But yeah, it is quite a bit of fun, and we're all very different. So if you get to know us, you'll get to know our personalities are all different, but we all have very similar work ethics, very similar goals and visions of the company. But yeah, it's been fun so far.
You know, it's funny because I have a sister too, and I help her sometimes the odd time in her business. But, you know, I think the hardest part for me would be to not take things so personal, right? At the end of the day, it's business. And even though you're so connected, as you say, you're connected to your sisters, I'm super connected with my sister, and it would be hard not to take things personally. So it's almost kind of removing, you know, yourself from that and just know business is business.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what is some advice that you would give someone if they want to start a brokerage with a family member?
Yeah, good question. So I'll be straight up. Our dad did not want us coming into the business at all. It took a lot. He wanted us to wait until we hit a certain age. He sent us out there into the workforce. We all went to university, got different jobs, and eventually I was the first one that started it and kind of banged on his door, and he thought we were a little crazy, and we had to send resumes to our dad and really had to put ourselves out there and apply for the position. And even though he did think we were crazy, but if you know my father, he's a very strategic person as well. Everything is done with a purpose. And so he had it all planned. And what we did getting into the business, we actually hired a third party to help us out because, like you said, sometimes you don't want to mix family and business too much. So to make sure that we were actually prepared to get into the industry and what we were about to embark on, we hired a third party. His name is Wayne Einhorn. He's been with us for a long time. And a year before we even got into the industry, we actually met with Wayne every 2 weeks. So I worked in healthcare for many years, and every 2 weeks after working in the hospital, we'd go meet with Wayne and learn about really what a brokerage is like and what we can expect to do. And kind of, we even went as far as having interviews with him. So after a year of meeting with him, we each individually had to sit down with Wayne, and he got to know us and our personalities and really figured out where we would fit in the business. And then he gave our dad the go ahead and was like, yes, these girls are ready. I don't know what you're thinking. They're capable. You've got some good talent here. So we had to hire the outside person. So I think that was a really great plan. So if you are getting into the family business, I would recommend hiring an outside person to really teach your kids or whoever the succession plan is. And speaking, another thing that my sisters and I did on top of that, which I think really helped with conflict, like you said, it can be really easy to fight with your sister's baby, especially in a business environment. So my sisters were both in HR, and Carly actually made us do some personality tests. And we got to do this full test, and we met at Starbucks one day and went through our results, and we figured out we deal with conflict a lot differently. So I shut down a lot. I like to be quiet. Carly likes to talk it out. And so whenever it comes to conflict, we really have to respect the different approaches that we deal with it. And I would highly recommend even doing personality tests that way for anyone you work with, to really go through how each person handles different situations.
Well, I think that's, great advice. It's, it's not just, you're not just entering a family business and going, okay, let's cross our fingers, hope it works,
No.
but you're really putting a plan in place to make sure that you function well as a team, in the business, and also respecting, each other as family members. And I think it's really cute that your dad put you through the interview process, having to send probably the follow-up email after the interview saying, dear Claire, thank you so much for your time today. I think my, strengths will really help your brokerage to grow. Hope to see you at dinner tonight.
Exactly. PowerPoint presentations, everything.
That's super cute. All right. So let's talk about now the positive impact you and your sisters have had on the business. So since you three got involved, I know it's been kind of 5 years, but in the past 4 years, you've had a net agent increase of 200 agents. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Wow. And so now you have 432 agents. So that is an 85% increase from 4 years ago. So you've almost doubled your agent count. Congratulations. You and your sister are just like, knocking it out of the park.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. It's been
So
fun.
what do you think have been some of the key ingredients to your growth?
Awesome. So I'll be completely honest out there too. So I'm in the Toronto Real Estate Board. So we have over 60,000 real estate agents in our own area. So I do have quite a bit of an advantage by having a bigger pool of agents to choose from. So I will say that definitely helps. But like I mentioned, Wayne has really helped out as well. So we still meet with him to this day. Every couple of weeks, we talk about strategy. We talk about recruiting goals. We go over our vision, and it's a very strategic thing. So we talk about the goals and how we're going to get there. So really having somebody to really keep me accountable and making sure that we are on top of our goals and all that really helps. And then I think another big key thing has really been my dad kind of pushed us out there to go meet with the other broker owner managers from all the other Century 21s in our area. So we've made a really good effort to travel to like Barrie, to go to Peterborough, Oakville, and we've really gone out there to meet all of these people who have a lot more experience than us and learn from them as well. So we're getting that outside experience, plus we're able to share ideas with them too. So I really just think that the Century 21 family in general has really helped us out along the way as well.
Well, and I remember when you did that actually, because I remember seeing pictures of you traveling everywhere to kind of learn best practices. And now you're here with me, sharing your best practices with everyone else. So I think that's just you're right. That is the best thing about Century 21, right? It's this collaborative culture that we have to support each other and really grow together.
Exactly.
So let's talk about what attracts agents to your brokerage. What do you think that is?
Well, we've been around for a long time. We've been around for 45 years now, and we have a really good reputation out there in the public. We're a very professionally family-run company, and I think that a lot of people, even before they get into real estate as a career, chances are pretty high that they've heard of our family as well. And now even just having the third generation with my sisters and I, now we've got an even bigger range. So we've got the old school ways of doing real estate, but now we also have the new school ways. So we can kind of really attract a wide range of agents, both young, old. We've got 25 different cultures here. So we're able to attract a lot of different types of agents, but I definitely think our reputation out there really does help as well.
Yeah. I think the great things that your brokerage is doing particularly is that you and your sister have brought this fresh, contemporary, energy to the brokerage, but making sure that you maintain the legacy that has really, as you say, has built up and provided you respect in the community over the last 45 years. So that's awesome.
Exactly.
So tell me, what are you doing to recruit agents to your business? Like, how are you getting those leads?
So there's a lot, and I think we'll talk a lot about fails and all that stuff, but there's a lot of different ways. So I do a lot of both online and offline ways. In terms of offline, we do get a lot of agent referrals, and that's a really big part of our business. And I can say that that might be a little bit more of an old school way of doing things is agent referrals. So people that work here already are bringing in a lot of agents. Networking events is huge for us. So pre-COVID, we were going to a lot of training events with outside coaches and all that, and really putting ourselves out there and meeting agents from all over the place. And then, of course, I'm doing a lot of online stuff lately. So social media, email campaigns. There's some student Facebook groups I can talk about. And then job boards is a huge one for me as well. So those are the main ones that I do focus on.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because I think the first time that I met you, Katelyn, was at a Century 21 conference. And I remember you and your sisters, I think you sent everyone that you met a bomb video, right? Yeah. And so you have been superb at networking. You really, and I think the second year you did like personalized cards, and you really find that way to network, and not only network at the moment, but kind of leave that lasting impression.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a huge thing, just meeting people in person. So we really do miss all of that stuff too, and really being able to connect with people after the events as well.
Awesome. So what is working best for you? You talked about offline, online. What is working best for you?
Okay. So we did the numbers. So I took on the last 74 agents that we hired in the last year and a half. And so 36% come from local job boards. 32% of those people came from agent referrals. 10% came from social media, so Instagram, Facebook. 8% of those people came from just our own teams bringing in agents as well. And then the other things are word of mouth, like call-ins, sphere of influence, and then career nights and websites. So there's a whole wide range of them, but the job boards, agent referrals, and social media are definitely the biggest ones for us.
All right. So let's talk about then job boards, because, you know, even though, you know, it's online, it is something that's been around for a while. So what are you doing to contribute to success in that particular area?
Yeah. So I always like to have like a passive way of finding finding recruits and new agents. So the job boards have really been a thing, and they didn't work for me a lot in the beginning. Like we were getting a few people here and there. So I've really had to play around a lot with the job boards. The main one that I do use is Indeed. So I'm sure a lot of people out there have Indeed, but this has been the biggest success for me. And I've played around. I've played around with the description, but I've found that the biggest thing is the tagline, the headline. So the first thing that the agents see, and I've really had to play around with just that first thing, just to grab the attention to even get them to click on our job postings. So that has probably been my biggest secret, is the tagline for sure. And so I also think if you're going to be doing job posts, it's important to not change it. So there was a point where I found out what tagline was getting the most people, and then I would try something new the next week. But then I realized, okay, that's not working. So once I found out that special tagline, I think it's really important to just copy and paste and keep doing it. And so that's pretty much what I've been focused on for the past 2 years. I've used the same tagline for 2 years. And like I said, 36% of the agents that I've hired have come from that platform now. So we've got that. And then because I've seen so much success from that, there's also, I don't know, there's a lot, there's a job board in Ontario. So the students take, it's called Pass It. So it's actually a program where the students can actually practice multiple choice questions to prepare them for the exam. And I don't know if any other provinces have it, but they now just started another job board for brokerages to start promoting on as well. So once the students done their schooling, a good chunk of the students have signed up for that program. So now they can now go to, it's called Scout. And so they can now click on that and be connected with brokerages in the area. So I just joined that a couple of weeks ago, and I'm seeing some success on that too. So I think any job board's been good.
Great. So for those of you, for the listeners out there, if you are on Indeed or any of the local job boards, the most important thing is have a catchy headline that grabs attention, right? It's one of the first things you learn in marketing and advertising, and then stay consistent. Because, you know, of course, as you say, you want to kind of change it up, and because you think it gets boring, but it's only getting boring to yourself. It's not getting boring to the person that's reading it.
Exactly.
So you also talked about getting agent referrals. So a lot of your agents are referring other agents to your brokerage. Obviously, that means your agents are extremely happy with your brokerage. So what are you doing to make your agents successful and make them feel supported?
Awesome. So I would say probably about 90% of the agents that we do hire are brand new, fresh out of school. And just from interviewing quite a few of them, I find that the number one thing that any new agent is looking for is support. And so we are very well known for the support systems that we give. And I know there's a lot of brokers out there that say that they offer support. But for us, like Century 21 Percy Fulton, what that means for us is our training programs, for example. We have a very strategic way of doing our training. We don't believe in classroom training. We don't do group training, all of that. Of course, we offer some sessions on it, but the real training that we do with our agents is all one-on-one. So when it comes to our agents, we want them to meet with us as managers one-on-one so we can kind of get to know them. We get to know their business. I'm hiring agents that are between the ages of 20 to like 60 years old. So it doesn't make sense for me to throw them into a classroom and expect that they're all going to pull the same information away. So we'll throw those group trainings once a week. But when it comes to their sole business, we do prefer for them to sit down with us. When they have a buyer client, seller client, we want them to even meet with us before they even step foot in front of that buyer, seller client, so we can really prepare for them and let them know what's going to happen when they open the door and meet that new client for the first time. And one of the biggest training programs we call the Systems for Success. And it's a very systematic way of training. So it's a checklist form. So if a new agent's going to a listing presentation, for example, I have knock on door. Next step, say, thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to meeting with you. Step 3, go to the kitchen table, ask them these questions, then do a tour. So we have a very systematic way of training our agents. And that way, when they're brand new, they know nothing about the industry, they feel a little bit more supported and prepared. And so we have a really good success rate on that training. In terms of services, we are considered a full service brokerage as well. And that's very important to us for the agents. And what it means as a full service for us is we have, for example, a full team of admin staff here. And what our admin staff are doing is they're broker loading our agents' offers for them, which is a very scary thing for a brand new agent. So not only are they getting a client, when that client likes a property, they're almost too scared to write an offer and mess it up. So we've got these extra services to make sure that they feel confident, comfortable writing their offers. We're broker loading things for them, ordering their for sale signs, their photography. So we're very much supporting them in every part. And then a good portion of that part is we're also not collecting credit cards or anything to make this kind of business. We treat our agents very much like business partners. So we'll pay a lot of things up front for them. They'll pay us back. So that way, again, new agents, they feel a little bit more prepared and ready to go. The technology we've got is amazing, and I'm sure we'll touch on that a little bit, but the technology is so good that I'm able to really have like an out-of-box package for any agent. They've got their websites, their CRMs, they've got a full platform. So if they're just graduating from school, they don't have to worry about all this stuff. They're like, who's my photographer? Who's going to do this? Who's going to do that? So we really do have a full packaged, full support system for any new agent that's joining us. And our agents feel that. And I think that's kind of what brings in a lot of agent referrals, is because they know they're being supported as well. So they're comfortable referring their friends and family to work with us as well.
Well, as you say, Katelyn, you've got this complete package, and you do a really great job at letting your agents know that you have this complete package. You're always promoting, you're the biggest ambassadors for the Century 21 brand and all of its tools and resources. So I think that, it's a part of it is for them understanding that it's there for them and then engaging them in those different tools and resources.
Exactly. Yeah. So I got to give that props to my dad who's done all this, because it is a very traditional way of running a brokerage, and thankfully we've kind of kept going. So very grateful for my father for having this well-oiled machine that keeps the agents staying with us.
Well, I think that's the magic in today's conversation, right? Is keeping some of the old school ways of running a brokerage, but bringing in some fresh new ideas and some energy. So, in speaking of this, I know you specifically and your sisters are always trying new things. So what are you doing now, or what will you be doing in the future that's different from what you've done in the past?
Right. Yeah. So I'll talk a little bit, like when I started 5 years ago, we were being pushed to hire a lot of experienced agents. So if you've been recruiting, you know that hiring an experienced agent is a lot different than hiring a brand new agent. So I was doing the old school ways. I was cold calling, text messaging. I was doing a lot of that stuff. And then I realized that the agent that we really do attract has always been the brand new agent. So career nights was one of the things that we had done in the past. And it's not something that I always enjoyed doing, but I was very successful at it, but it was also a hit or miss. So sometimes I would get 10, 15 people. Sometimes I would get one person showing up to career night. And I was like, well, this is a waste of time. I can't just do this for one person. But I would hire one person for every career night I did. So it was working. So I have to keep that going. And what changed in Ontario? So before I used to do a lot of career nights for people that were thinking about getting into real estate. And then I would try to encourage them, show them the process. And we only had to do 3 courses at one point to get licensed. So that was a very quick turnaround. And then they changed it to 5 courses. So that was about maybe a year long. So for me to meet for someone, do a career night, it could take a year and a half for that person to even remember who I was a year ago. So then I switched the focus of career night to be for students that were currently in the program. So that way they've already decided they're going into real estate. It's a little bit of a shorter time frame from them to come to career night and get their license. So we switched that up. But again, it was such an unpredictable audience that I just wasn't sure if it was working too much for me. So this year, what we've been working on is I'm just going to be pre-filming the career night. So I've got a whole presentation. It's going to be on YouTube, and we're going to do some landing pages and now direct people to the watch this 30-minute video on how to get into real estate. And then we're going to set them up on the C21 Engage, the campaigns, the recruiting campaigns for new agents. And that way there's a little bit of a drip campaign afterwards for them to stay in touch. And then hopefully we'll get some meetings with them then. So that's kind of what I've got in my next work of things for career night.
Oh, I love that. It's like now people can experience career night on demand, right? So,
Exactly.
at their own time versus coming down. And of course, we have some challenges with, everything that's going on about, in-person visits anyhow. So I think that's a really great way of building on something that has been successful, over the years and just putting a new twist on it.
Yeah.
So let's talk about now your specialty, which is social media. How are you using social media to recruit new agents?
Awesome. So I'm still working with it. I always love when people call me like this, like specialties. I'm like, oh, I feel like there's so many other people out there that are so much better, but it is something that I really do enjoy doing. And I think people can see that I enjoy using social media just to share our business and stuff. But the 2 things that I've been finding the most success for on social media is Instagram and Facebook, and more in particular, the Facebook student groups. So the one on Instagram, which I've actually been experimenting better in the last couple of months, is with Instagram Reels. And if anyone doesn't know what Reels is, it's just like a 15-second to 1-minute video. Usually it's me dancing or pointing my finger and so like different points, which I don't like doing, but it works. So I'll do like random like hacks on how to get a listing or just giving some tips out for agents out there. So just having agents kind of watching us, just giving free advice almost on how to find business. And then I'll throw in tidbits of like the C21 technology and all of that. In the last few months, I've gotten way more people now private messaging us, booking appointments. And so I'm getting more eyes now that we've been doing Instagram Reels. I think we said about 10% of agents came from social media. So I actually interviewed 21 agents just from Instagram this year, and 7 of them joined. So I'm going to say that it is working. So we've got the Instagram Reels. And then the other one is there is an actual Humber College. That's the Ontario Real Estate School for students, but it's called Humber College Real Estate Students. And so I actually joined this group. You're not allowed to recruit in this group. So there are a lot of rules. So what I've been doing on this side is I've mostly just been passive. So I'm just like watching. And then if I see someone comment about an exam or asking for experienced agents to answer a few questions, I've seen a few people say, hey, I'm looking for a brokerage in Scarborough, and like I'll chime in when I need to. And so I'm building relationships that way. But I'm finding that engaging in these student Facebook groups are really helping out a lot. And I'm even tagging some of our partner, like other Century 21s. And if I see someone in their area, I'll tag them on it too. So it has been a really good platform. There's over 10,000 students on that right now. So it's a pretty big audience, and I can just kind of hide and comment when needed.
Well, it's funny that you say that you don't like, dancing to music and pointing your fingers, but you know what, Katelyn, it puts a smile on my face. Like it makes me have a good morning when I see you in the morning, since you're 3 hours ahead of me.
Yeah, I always encourage people to try it too. Like it gets a weird thing and you don't have to dance, but if you're just pointing, like for me, I don't want to always be talking. And that was my way of getting out of my comfort zone on Instagram was, okay, you don't have to necessarily talk. You just have to point your finger and figure out how to put text next to it. And then I'm starting to build up a little bit more confidence where I can actually speak on the camera and just have music in the background. So those are really working. And I guess while I'm on the topic of reels too, hashtags is really important when it comes to the reels. So if you do have a local school board, so again, ours is Humber. So I'll follow the Humber real estate hashtag, or I'll tag the school as well. And that also gets more attention just from those videos. So there's a lot of students kind of watching the social media, and there's not a lot of brokerages that are doing a lot of stuff for the students. And that's kind of why I changed the target audience as well on Instagram. So I used to have like just listed, just sold. And so it was kind of a mix of a consumer audience that were buying and selling real estate. And then I also had a student audience. So now it's just purely agent audience. So if you go over to our Instagram, you'll see now it's mostly just for agents. And so I'm not posting just listed, just sold, because that's not my audience for Instagram anymore.
Well, that's great. And I think that you mentioned that, I think you said 10% of your leads basically are coming through your social media efforts. Is that younger agents, or is it all over the board, or what does that look like?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely younger. I would say ages 20 to 30. I've even hired like a 21-year-old lately. So I'm getting a lot more of the younger audience on that one. And then when with the job boards and all that, that's where I'm getting like the older agents as well.
Great. Well, now we've talked a little bit about, you've given some tips on, what to do with local job boards. We talked about, what you're doing to keep your agents happy, so they're referring agents, how you're building on Career Night, and what you're doing on social media. Let's talk about now, once you get that lead, what and if an agent's not quite ready to make that change, how do you stay top of mind with them? Like, how do you keep that relationship going so when they do want to make a change that they think of you?
Yeah, so I have learned not to chase anyone anymore. So I used to get really bummed out when I'd hire an agent, they weren't ready to leave or they didn't want to join us. So a lot of people might hate this, but I don't just like always follow up with the people necessarily, because I want people to join us that really want to be part of it in the first place and see the value that we're offering them. But if I really did like and they didn't join us or something like that, usually I'm adding them on Instagram or LinkedIn and just like maintaining like a couple likes, shares, comments on some of their posts, and just maintaining that relationship there. And then as of recently, I started adding a lot of the experienced and new agents to the C21 recruit campaigns. So when I was looking into it, I was like, wow, this is a really good tool, and it follows up with them. I think it's every month or something. They get an email about some sort of technology, and they're pretty powerful campaigns. So I put a bunch of people on that. And it's a mix of people that I've met with and didn't join, or I even have some targeted agents in the community that I'm interested in. So I'll just put them on a passive campaign just to be reminded of us once in a while. And I'll tell you, I had the most success from this versus the ones I used to do back in the past. And it saved me a lot of time. But in 4 emails, I actually did get 1 interview from an experienced agent. And I also had 2 conversations, and it's about a 46% open rate. So I'm hoping that those campaigns will keep going, and hopefully I can get some more success from that platform as well.
Great. And these are the ones that we've built in the C21 Engage, your CRM platform, that have those different recruiting campaigns, right?
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. Great. So let's talk now about the recruiting process. It's one thing to get the appointment, which obviously you're getting appointments, but now you have to make that great impression. So what are you doing to wow potential recruits?
Yeah. So like you said, it's one thing to get the appointment, but it's the other thing to actually do really well in the presentation. And I think that's actually the harder part of the recruiting process, is the actual presentation or the interview with that person. So I'll tell you, when I first started interviewing, I was terrible. I was so bad at interviews. And I still remember my first interview. When I was working with Wayne, we used to do this thing called a gap analysis, where you would bring the agent in, you would ask them a few questions on what they were missing from their other brokerage. And then you would just kind of like do like a little analysis of them, and then they would go home and then you'd figure out what you could fill the gaps in. So my first interview was 10 minutes. It was the most awkward interview ever. I'm even traumatized to even know what she still thinks of me because it was really bad. And I started interviewing a lot of experienced agents, and I could not recruit at all. Like, I got the interviews, but the presentation I killed. And so eventually I actually went to my dad and I was like, you need to change your commission split. It's the commission split. I can't sell it. This is too much. And then my dad thankfully was like, we're not changing the commission split. You just need to sell it better. And I was like, yeah, you're right. So I took the other approach where I really kind of figured out how to have a better presentation. It wasn't the commission, it was me. I was just really bad at selling the value that we had. And I would say it took me about a year to really perfect this. So I had a lot of interviews with people, and it was more like practice more than anything. But once I figured out how to communicate our value, I had a much higher success rate. So I went from hiring 10 agents in 1 year to 50 the next year. So I really perfected it very well. And I really wish that I learned this when I was learning about recruiting, to be honest. I wish more presentations had a presentation of the recruit, but I kind of split mine into 6 pieces. Do you want me to talk about all of them as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We want to hear about this.
All of it. Okay. So I don't do like your typical like PowerPoint presentation. I still like to keep it as a conversation, but it's the same 6 pieces of the interview that I do. So the first step is report building and research. So at the very beginning of the interview, usually what I like to do is I like to ask them about themselves. Where do they live? What do you do for a living? Are you planning on going full-time, part-time? And then I just kind of get to know like why they got into real estate. The other question I ask them, which is the most important question, is, are you interviewing other brokerages? And this is more for me than anything. I want to know what my competition is up to. And the best way to find out what your competitors are up to is to ask the people that are interviewing them. So I always have a piece of paper out during this part, and I'm saying, okay, who did you meet with? What did you think about them? Was there anything missing from this brokerage? I'll even straight up ask them what the commission structure is. And I'm writing that down because I want to know what my competitors are up to. And I have an Excel sheet that's full of my competitors' commission rates and what they're offering. And so once I get to know the competition, then I go into, well, what are you looking for? And this is what's really going to steer my conversation, because if they're not interested in technology and they just want to know commission splits, the conversation might be a little bit different. But if they're interested in support and training, I'm going to go really in depth into our training and support, like I spoke about a little bit earlier. Same with technology. If this person's not interested in technology, I'm probably not going to talk too much about technologies. So I'm really asking them what they're interested in, and that's really going to guide where I take that conversation with them. So it's really like a research kind of report building part. Part 2, this is where I talk about us. So I talk about the family, where our offices are located, what type of agents I typically look for. I talk about my dad, my sister. So it's really just a brief overview of us. And I'm not going into awards. I'm not saying, oh, we're number 1 in Toronto or anything like that, because they don't really care. So it's really just a brief overview of who we are as a little family. And then step 3, I talk about the training. So I really go in depth with the training. So I talk about the one-on-one. And what's important about these things is to talk about what's in it for them. Like, they want to know why do you do training this way? And why do you do it like that? Why are you training this? So I talk about our one-on-one training. I talk about our office meetings. I talk about the breakfast clubs that we do every week. So I really go into depth about that. And then the 4th part of it is the services. So I go into the full service of our brokerage. I talk about our admin team and what they're doing downstairs to help you as an agent build your business. I'm talking about the photography team, the videographies, the signs, and I really give them an overview of the different services that they're going to get. Then I go into technology. And this is a really important thing to note. I'm not just on the phone with somebody. And my interview is about an hour and a half with these people. It's not a quick phone call to be like, hey, you get a website, you get a CRM. If you ever see my interview, it's either in person or on Zoom. I have about 20 tabs just opened at the top, and I'm going through every single part of the technology. So I usually start with my Hub 21, and I talk about, okay, you get Hub 21. And then I go through each tab. So I'll go through my Engage, and I show them C21 Engage, and I show them the to-do list. I show them the calendars. I go into each campaign. I show them the life at the newsletter. And then I talk about the post-sale campaigns, the first-time homebuyer campaigns, and show them and I open them up and show them each email so they really get a good vibe of what it is. Then I talk about the presentation center. So instead of just saying, hey, you get CMAs made for you, I actually have an opened seller presentation. I scroll through it. I have a buyer presentation. I scroll through that. I even show them how easy it is to use. And then the buyer tour one as well. Then I'll skip over to the marketing center and I show them an email, like that was emailed to me saying, congratulations on your listing. Here's all your marketing materials. And I'll click on each thing to show them how easy it is to open. And then I show them the other side of the marketing center. I go into your websites and I don't just show them the website. I'm going onto the property search and saying, hey, we're connected to IEX. So any listing you click on looks as if it's your listing, even if it's another brokerage's listing. This is how you can use it in your business. You can copy and paste the link, put it on your Facebook page, and every listing looks as if it's yours. Go through neighborhood news as well and why those are important. So I'm really same with Campus 21. I show them, I open it and I show them, it looks like Netflix for real estate agents. So it's not just me telling them about it. I think it's very important for them to see it and click it and feel it and see what it's going to do. And then it's almost like a training session. So it's almost like I'm doing their onboarding in my recruit meeting. And I think that's really important, is to really show them it, because it is a very impressive system and they need to see it. So once I'm done technology, then the last thing I do is commission. So that's the final thing. And even before I start talking about these things, I never talk about commission up front. That's something that we teach our salespeople. You don't go into a listing presentation and answer what your commission split is on the phone. You go do the presentation and then you talk about the cost of it after. So I'm very strategic, I'm very open, and I tell them exactly how the presentation is going to go. And then that way I'm leading the conversation and then we go into all that stuff. So it is a 6-piece. So I'll tell you again, first stop is report and research. Second part is about us. Third is training. Fourth is services. 5 is technology. And then the 6 is commission. So those are my 6 pieces.
Great. And that's great to break it down that way. And what I like what you said is that, it's almost like a training session. So like almost like an onboarding. So they get to actually experience really the tools that are going to help them build their business. And so I love that strategy. So that's just a great opportunity.
Exactly. And I think it's important to be like passionate about it too. Like they see my excitement in all these technologies. So a new agent's all terrified of what's out there. So if they see some excitement and some motivation in your voice, they feel like, okay, I can do this. Like I've got the tools, I'm ready. And like they feel supported before they even join us. So you have to be excited and you have to know your value. And so if you're an expensive brokerage, you can sell it a little bit better if you know and like what you're selling.
So we talked about, generating the leads. Then we talked just now about how to wow them during the recruiting presentation. Do you actually end up, once you meet with all these agents, do you end up hiring every single agent that you meet with?
Gosh, no, absolutely not. No. So I look at my numbers and I do 1 in 3. Usually 1 in 3 will join us. So I even broke it down a little bit. So if you wanted to hire 70 agents, I do about 210 appointments to get 70 agents. So that's about 4. I always make a goal to do about 4 interviews a week, and that will keep me on track for a goal.
And what are you looking for when you decide on, yes, this is a perfect person to join my brokerage? What are you looking for?
For me, I love brand new. So I love brand new agents. I think we have a really good system for a brand new agent. They come with a little bit of a different mindset. So any new agent that sees value and wants to work with us as well and sees that, I want that type of person. So I don't want an agent that's only going to call me and ask me what my commission structure is, because they already don't see the value. They don't care what I have to offer. They just care about how much the split is. So I want someone that sees the value in what we're doing for them.
So I know that, we talked about you're always innovating, you're always trying something different, you're always kind of fine tuning your recruitment process. Yeah. So, but I'm sure not everything has always gone as planned. I want to know some of the things that you've tried, but you failed at.
Yeah. So I've definitely tried quite a few. I'll talk a little bit about both. So I'll say for experienced agents, what I used to do was I used to practice on a list of people that have done 0 deals. So I think this was a great way to get into cold calling because it kind of took that pressure off me to go after that top producer. So I printed out a list of every agent that's done 0 deals. And that's where I was practicing my cold calling scripts on them. I would practice my appointments on them. And that's really where I got comfortable with the recruiting process. So although I don't really do that anymore, it really did help me perfect what I'm doing now. And so that was one of them. And with those guys doing calls, texts, video, emails, I've done cards. There's been a whole bunch of stuff for experienced agents that I've done. And I've hired a few of them as well, but it just wasn't, they're not the type of agents that I was going after. So eventually, after the cold calls, I switched over to new agents again, since that's what my father was always believing in, was the new agents. And I kind of sat down and I was like, well, how do I find a new agent? Because experienced agents, you can see them, like they're everywhere. You go to their website, you know who the agents are. Whereas a new agent, they're in school, so you don't really know. So I went to the school to go recruit agents. And I thought that was the smartest way, was to go to the school, find the students that haven't quite finished. And because I was just a student as well, I knew when the lunch break was, and I knew when all the breaks were for each class. So I would drag my sisters out with me, and we used to put flyers in the cars to invite them to career night. And then the best day was when we stood out in the parking lot with flyers and we were interviewing students in the parking lot. And AREA saw us and they were like, you cannot be doing this. Like, there's no soliciting signs everywhere. I don't know. We always went with the, it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission type of thing. So we actually ended up having to stop because they called our dad. They took our flyers and they called our dad and was like, you need to tell your daughters to not come here anymore. And being my dad, he was like, well, why not? Like that's where the students are. But so I had to stop going to AREA, or else they were probably just going to kick us right out. But then I took it a step further. I was like, okay, well, if I can't be at the school, how else do I get in front of them? And there's a Starbucks. There's only one Starbucks down the street where all the students went at lunch and on their break. So right after actually my first Century 21 conference, there was a woman doing a recruiting presentation on this $2,000 idea. And it, like, the whole point was to get a meeting with another agent and you would give them an idea of how to find business. So I printed up a sign that said, AREA student, have a $5,000 coffee on me. And I just put it on my stool and I just had coffee and would sit. And then the Starbucks people didn't like that either. And they were like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I'm just have a sign. I'm not pulling people out. But so I got kicked out of that. And that's now why I do a lot of my recruiting online now.
So you're not banned from every single place around your brokerage. Those are some great stories. And, I think that, one of the best things that you just said too, is that you really know what you're going for. You're going for that new agent, and your audience, you're very targeted to who your audience is and what they need, and I think, and you've talked about this in our conversation, but, make sure what's in it for them, right? Just make sure you show it what's in it for them. And I think you've done a really, really great job.
Yeah.
So what are some tips as we start to wrap up this conversation? What are some tips that you could give brokerages that wanted to attract more agents to their business? Where should they start?
So I would say step one is, like you said, you need to know what agent you're attracting, because they're two different things. If you want to attract brand new agents, then you need to figure out how to get in front of them. So through those Facebook groups, if there's anything that the school offers for you to be in front of the students, then you need to do that. If you're doing experienced agents, then it's a different type of recruiting. It's a little bit more of a long-term game, more of a relationship builder. So you do have to put yourself out there with those agents, but be prepared that it's going to take a lot longer than hiring a new agent. And that may require some cold calling, like the more traditional ways with the experienced guys. Also, you need to know your competition. I think that's very important, is to know what's out there. What's the guy down the street offering the agents that you're not, or what are you offering that they're not? So you really do need to know what they are. And the easiest way for me was to do that in the interview process with any agents that I'm meeting. And then perfect your presentation. That's the biggest one. Perfect the presentation, practice it. Again, I was practicing on calling agents that have done 0 deals, and I was practicing on all of these people in a different environment as well. And then try everything. So like I've shown you, I've tried a lot and not everything works for me, but I wanted to say some of the things that I failed because there may be some small towns out there, some people watching that these things may work for, but I would say try everything. And then at the end of the year, what I typically do is I will go line by line. I'll figure out where I got each individual agent. And then that next year, I know exactly where to focus my attention. So keep track of it all as well.
Well, and I like kind of what you've been saying through this whole thing is kind of understanding, how comfortable you are at doing things, right? And then to find ways to take the pressure off of yourself, in order to get more comfortable in whatever you're doing. And then, with that practice comes confidence, right? And then you can kind of take that next step. But, I love it that you're making, calls to, agents with no transactions. And so take the pressure off of you until you get comfortable doing it. Then let's call some productive agents. It's a great idea.
Yeah.
So now for our last question is, and this doesn't have to be your time within the real estate industry, but just any time in your career or really your life is, what do you think has been the biggest challenge you've ever faced that ended up being a blessing in disguise?
Good question. I will say, and this may be cliche, but COVID was, or the pandemic in general was probably the biggest challenge I faced in recruiting because it was a very awkward time. Like, we had all these campaigns set up and I'm like, we can't just go recruiting people. Like, this is a very insensitive time and taking from other brokers. If it was an experienced agent, it just wasn't the time to be recruiting. So it kind of pulled you back a little bit, but then it helped me quickly adapt to the online recruiting portion as well. And because Humber College, so that's the college where the students go, it became online as well. And with everybody working from home and people losing jobs, a lot of people are getting their real estate license. A lot of it's online. So now I'm able to actually connect with the students online. There's a lot more people to choose from. And I'm actually able to do my interviews online now. So Zoom was not a thing for me to be doing interviews before the pandemic came. And with Zoom, it's actually helped me do a lot more interviews. People are working from home, so I can do interviews now during the day. So if it's a part-time agent, I don't have to do an interview at 6 p.m. anymore. So if anything, the pandemic was kind of a blessing in some ways for recruiting.
Great. Well, Katelyn, you've been absolutely amazing. If someone wanted to get a hold of you, what is the best way for them to do that?
I'd say the best way is on social media. You can find us on multiple platforms, but on Instagram, you can find us at C21 Percy Fulton. Or if you want to follow my sisters and I, you can follow us on Instagram at Fulton Sisters as well.
Great. Well, Katelyn, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us. And again, congratulations to your father who have taught you so well, and you and your sisters for really taking the business to the next level. So we really appreciate your time. You're either listening to this podcast live or you're listening to this recording on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Google Podcasts, or you went to century21franchise.ca website. Century 21 is one of the largest residential real estate companies in the world. We have presence in 86 countries. And here in Canada, we are 11,000 plus strong. And we are looking to align ourselves with like-minded individuals who share the same vision of what the future of brokerages look like. If you're interested in any growth opportunities, please feel free to reach out to me or my colleague, Gary Zalepa. You can get our contact information from century21franchise.ca, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn or Facebook and we can set up a chat. So anyways, thank you again for being with us.